Hi everyone, welcome back. It is Allie from 1 Month 2 Cameras, and if you were looking to not spend any money this month, you should probably click off this video because I'm about to tell you about a camera which may be the greatest of all time, but luckily for you, or not, is also impossible to find. We are talking about the Canon EOS 1D Mark I. So the first thing you will see when you look at this camera is just how giant it is. This is built off of the classic EOS 1V film camera from Canon, and this was their first digital body. Not totally first, they actually did a collaboration body previous to this, but it was not fully spec'd the way this was, nor did it have the APS-H CCD sensor, 4 megapixels, weather-sealed body, all the bells and whistles that they put into this. Of course, the integrated grip as well. So this was really their first DSLR. So this is the 1D, and then the D1 from Nikon came out before this. I have not used the D1. I cannot comment on the D1, but holy this thing is incredible. I was not expecting to actually like this camera. But now you've got my feelings right off the bat. Let's talk a little bit about the camera. It goes from ISO 200 to 1600. It does expand to 100 to 3200. I do not use those expansion categories. I'm perfectly happy from 200 to 1600. And I really mean that. Up to 1600. There is noise. It looks organic. It looks great. I have zero qualms about shooting all day at 1600. There is no auto ISO on this body. It takes CF cards for memory. It has this nice little pop-up function here, and you open it. It has all the rubber gaskets. Mine was in like crazy good shape when I bought it. I will never sell this camera. It is a DSLR, so you have an optical viewfinder. It's a classic EVF 0.72 magnification. It is super bright. It is super clear. I only wish I had a split prism finder or a split, whatever they call that, so that I could focus with manual glass a little bit more precisely. That is a little bit of a hurdle for me, but that's also because my eyes are not amazing. In the viewfinder, you get really nice clean readouts of your shutter speed, your aperture, and how many shots left you have on the CF card that you're using. And of course, your exposure meter on the side to see if you're plus or negative on the exposure comp. It shoots RAW plus JPEG. Again, we're talking 2001, and they were already doing this in this body. That is key because there are five matrix modes. They call them color matrix modes. They're different sort of JPEG interpretations of color. We'll get a little bit deeper into this too, but some of the JPEG modes are spectacular, especially in certain circumstances. One thing that's kind of also interesting is that when you get raw files out of this, if you've ever shot a Canon, you're looking for that CR2 extension. These are actually TIFFs. So you get JPEGs and TIFFs coming out of this, which I thought, I don't know, it's not of any significance. I thought it was kind of interesting. It also has a hybrid white balance off the CCD sensor combined with this like sensor somewhere on the body. I don't actually know where it is. I'm guessing it might be this, but that might also be the focus assist. Maybe it's over here. I am not sure, but there are two white balance meters operating simultaneously together, and it does a great job. It does tend to lean towards the cool side of the spectrum, but I actually quite like it. It gives just a bit of a muted, more natural profile. And again, when you go into the color matrix options for your JPEGs, that can also alter how it looks. You can't double click into those matrix settings to like the way that Fuji does, where it's like, okay, you're gonna do, let's say, an acros, and then you're gonna push contrast 1 and da-da-da. There are ways to do that, but it relies on the old software for this, which is hard to find, and I didn't even bother, to be frank. It has buttons and dials galore for everything. It shoots from 30 seconds to 1/16,000th of a second. That's insane, you guys. Like, what? This is a 2001 camera, a DSLR no less. It's like not even a mirrorless camera. You can shoot wide open with your super fast glass, like your f1.4s are typically what you're gonna get on the EF mount. You do have the 1.2s, and I'm sure third parties came out with even crazier specs, but you don't have to worry about shooting that in broad daylight. It really is kind of amazing that they were doing this already in 2001. I'm just gonna keep coming back to that point because it's kind of beyond me. It has ETTL flash, so you can do flash sync. I think the flash sync is like 2/50th of a second. I actually don't know if I wrote this down. Oh, it goes up to a 500th of a second flash sync. You get through the lens metering, all of that good stuff. So really fun for strobes. You do have histograms built in, not live histograms, so you're not going to be able to see the histogram as you shoot. It's not a mirrorless camera. But once you've shot your image, if you want to, chimp, and just look to see where your histogram is falling. Let's say you're in manual and you're setting up your settings and you're like, it's basically test shot, right? And you look at your histogram, everything's great, you're level, and then you just keep shooting from there. I forgot to mention it also has highlight alerts, so you can put your blinkies on when your highlights are overexposed. I say this in every video, but you always want to protect your highlights, expose about 1/3 or 2/3 under, and you can bring up your shadows, but you can't really bring back your highlights. So this is no different. Just make sure that you're watching your blinkies. And that's not to say you can't blow things out. Like, I think people are a little too afraid to blow things out sometimes. I go full bleed white on like a lot of things. So like if I'm doing portrait that's backlit, I just let that shit go. You do not need to retain all your highlights. Like that's a look, but be intentional with how you're shooting and you'll get the results that you want. I say this in every video. These are old cameras. The LCDs are always bad in these old cameras. So like, don't read too much into them. Use those blinkies for your highlights. Use the histogram. But I will say, like, I got so comfortable with this camera. It does such a great job with metering. It does such a great job with white balance that I was just shooting it in like program or aperture priority without a second thought. Maybe dialing a little negative exposure comp, but other than that, just letting it rip. And I was never kind of disappointed with what I got as a result. When I shoot this camera, I do not know that I am shooting an old camera. It makes this camera stand out from literally every other old CCD body that I have shot, including the E1, including the E300, some of the other SLRs that I've shot. I mean, I've shot quite a few now. I haven't reviewed them all on this channel yet, but even like the Canon 5D, this autofocus keeps up. And while it's not like Sony eye-tracking mirrorless autofocus by any means, it is extremely quick and responsive. And I would have zero hesitation shooting this in kind of a fast action circumstance. To support that, it also has crazy frames per second. It shoots 8 frames per second. It has a great buffer. I think it's like 16 RAW files before it sort of locks up and clears. It is just a super responsive camera. And as a point of that, this was really aimed at pro photographers in kind of the sports arena. So it really was optimized for that. And to just dial in one step further on that, it is a 45-point autofocus system. It does not go edge to edge, but it does take up a good real estate in your sensor. This thing has the finest ergonomics. I mean, this thing is just a pleasure to hold and to shoot. And I was packing this ridiculous body with me on planes, in my purse, to rehearsals for my daughter. Like, I was bringing this with me everywhere. And actually, it took me so long to do this review because I just did not want to stop shooting it. It's so fun. I'm not taking it with me on my next trip because it is time to move on, but it's not going anywhere. I will keep using it. But you do have this built-in vertical grip, so you just turn this on over here. There's a little button that you turn here. I have mine permanently on. And then you get your, vertical shutter button here. You can do all your functions here. You've got your wheel, your focus lock, your exposure lock, your focus points. I mean, it's totally fully featured. It's a very unique way of setting up a system. You have to hold down, for example, for ISO adjustment, these two buttons at the same time. And then you use your wheel here. So let me see if I can get this in camera. So you hold these down and then you can adjust your ISO. You can bracket this way, you can adjust your focusing mode, single versus continuous. It's all two-handed up here, or if you hold down a single point, that's where you get like your mode. So right now, just holding down one button here, I'm getting from aperture priority to like program to shutter priority to bulb mode, manual, etc. And then your AF and your exposure, evaluative metering, spot metering, etc. It has a nice little light function, which is very handy, to be honest, at night. That lights up, and it also affects the back. It has a super funny menu. So again, two-handed operation. So if you hit the menu button, you then can't just like scroll. You have to then hold the menu button down. This is not easy to do, guys. And then this will swipe you through the menu. And now let's say, I can't actually see what I'm doing here, but let's say I'm here and I want to go to custom white balance. I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to hit select. Select is there. Select, and I can move through the menu here. Let's say I want to do custom white balance here. I'm going to take this, and for custom white balance on this camera, before hitting menu and select, you would have taken an image of a white surface, and then you would go in the menu, do custom white balance, then select, and then it would bring up all your photos, and you would go through and pick the photo of white that you want to set that white balance off of. Totally different than most cameras. As weird and janky as it may seem, it's absolutely intuitive after like one day of shooting. It has voice record memos on these like images the way that old cameras did, which I still love. You can display it in a grid as a single image. So single image, you can do a grid, you can do a smaller grid. It has everything you could want. Okay, so coming back to the color matrix options in this body for JPEGs. So the first one reproduces the hues and chroma for natural color tones. Select this option to show subject's natural color tones. This is like a very neutral profile. Matrix 2 reproduces the hues and chroma suited for portraits, so it's really geared towards skin tones. I happen to like it across the board, but really, especially for indoor portraits, under artificial light even, it is really, really good. Color Matrix 3 reproduces hues and chroma similar to those in high chroma color slide film. So it's a slide preset. I don't know, I was a little bit on the fence about this one. I used it. I like it in certain circumstances when it's like a heavy overcast gray day. It's a little bit, I don't know, it goes too green. I'm not loving it. Really, like Profile 2 is the one that I use the most. I just kind of have it permanently set there, and then when the conditions aren't ideal, I just use the raw TIFFs. And 4 produces images that are color space compatible with Adobe RGB. So this is a giant battery, not convenient for travel, I'm not gonna lie. I did it, but not great. The battery is an NPE3. It charges through these little holes here, and you hook up a wire from this thing. So the actual charger is also massive. It just makes for a big system. It's a big system. Okay, it's not perfect. That's the one fault. It's a big system, but everything else is perfect. These, thankfully, are still made. These are third parties. I got this one. It's called Power Extra. It's worked for me just fine. Apparently, another viewer contacted me and said they are using this with no success. So I don't know. I got lucky. I ordered mine on Amazon. It works just fine, but you know, maybe stick to Amazon because you can return it if it's not working for you. I think he was saying his wouldn't charge. The charger is weird. So while the batteries, the NPE3s, are readily available third party on like an Amazon, whatnot, the charger is a different story. The NPE2 is the charger, and they are harder to come by. I didn't actually see them on Amazon or anything like that. You do kind of have to find a used one on eBay or through another selling platform. Try, if you do look for this camera, to find one bundled with the charger. Mine came with the charger. I was very grateful. Again, I had no idea what I had stumbled into or how freaking lucky I was to find mine, because just finding the camera alone is a challenge. Hopefully it will come with the charger though if you do. So in DP Review's conclusion of this body, when they reviewed it back in 2001, they called it the Porsche of digital SLRs. First off, how cute is it to just say digital SLRs, DSLRs, right? But I couldn't agree more. This thing is fast. It is incredibly well built. It's weather sealed. It is responsive, and the output is so outstanding. I'm really eager to get my hands on a Nikon D1 now to compare, because they were competitors at the time. But having only shot this one, I'm madly in love with it. People have asked me, what do I think of this versus the 5D Classic? I'm sorry. There's no contest. I took my 5D Classic out recently. I shot a bunch of shots. I was like so disappointed after this camera. The shooting experience was great. I have no issue with the 5D shooting experience. But the colors and the JPEGs coming out of that versus this, yeah, no, sorry. This is gonna win, hands down, every time. If you can find one, and I am so sorry that they are as hard to come by as they are, but if you find one, grab it. You will not be disappointed. It is well worth the investment. And I mean, it's still relatively peanuts compared to modern day cameras. And you get a quality that is so unique that cannot be replicated by modern day cameras. So very happy with this camera, really excited I got to shoot it. Major thank you to Justin for like putting me onto this camera. I would have never found it on my own. I love that about this channel, about the Discord, about Instagram, about all the socials. The fact that we are in dialogue about these things. I'm always getting suggestions from you guys, and I am so grateful for that, because that's how we learn, right? So on that note, join our Digi Discord if you are not there already to talk more about these cameras. I will be moving on now to review the Fuji X10. This is another old Fuji camera, and for all of you who have been pining for an X100V, don't. I have it, and I'm actually gonna sell it. Another friend of mine just sold theirs. I don't know. I'm still on the fence, but I think I'm going to sell it. I just don't find that I click with it. The X10, however, is something special. It is not a replacement for the X100V. I will save all my thoughts for the review, but I will spend the next 2 weeks shooting it. Ping me with any questions you might have about it. I will add that to the review when I get to it. And until then, thank you. Keep shooting. Keep making beautiful work with limited resources. And I will see you in the next video.